It may be hard to believe, but Formula One racing has a following of more than 400 million people worldwide. The sport is growing at a rate faster than most others, and it has started to have an impact on our normal lives. I've been watching Formula One for a couple of years now, so I know how the sport works. I have also read up on the sport through several articles that dive deeper into it. In this speech, I'll be talking about how Formula One is a form of motor racing that has also started to have an impact on our daily lives. I'll first be talking about what Formula One is and how it came to be, and then I'll be talking about what Formula One looks like today, and third, I'll be talking about how we're starting to see ways in which Formula One technology is starting to be implemented into industries other than motor racing. And with that being said, let's dive right into the first topic of how Formula One came to be. Formula One is a form of motor racing that has origins dating back to the early 1900s. According to the article, Here's What Grand Prix Racing Was Like Before F1, author Luis Lerba explains that Europeans came up with the idea of racing culture. He talks about how the first recorded race was held in Paris, France in the year 1900. And then he talks about how soon after, other races began propping up across Europe as the popularity for motor racing grew. It even got to the point where major car companies heard about these races and even hosted some of their own, in which they would send their own cars to race in order to advertise their brands. Also, according to the article, What is Formula One from the F1 Chronicle? Formula One was officially established in 1946, with the first ever Formula One race being held in 1950 in England. In that first Formula One season, there were a total of 7 races, 6 of the races being held across Europe, with the one other race being held in the US. Now that you know a little bit about the history and upbringing of Formula One, we can talk about how Formula One looks like today. Nowadays, Formula One races look completely different compared to how they were in the past. According to the article, How an F1 Race Weekend Works from motorsport.com, F1 events occur over a 3-day span, usually on weekends from the days Friday to Sunday. On Fridays, the drivers come to the track and they simply practice. And on the next day, on Saturdays, the drivers compete to see who can get the fastest lap on the track. And this competition determines the starting order for the race, meaning that the drivers with the faster lap times will be starting at the top of the order whenever the race starts. And typically the races are held on the Sundays of those weekends. Moving on, in the article Formula One Circuits and Grand Prix Calendar 2022, writer Tony Kelshaw explains how nowadays Formula One races are being held in more widespread cases than ever before. In the current Formula One season, there are a total of 22 races, and there is a race on every continent of the world except for Africa and Antarctica. These races are held in major cities ranging from cities such as Mexico City and Miami to Melbourne and Barcelona. Looking at this graphic, we can see how this symbolizes the countries in which a Formula One race has been hosted, and this specific graphic shows the first Formula One season. And then we can see the difference from this being the current F1 season, and we can see just how much more widespread the sport has become by looking at the countries that have held a Formula One race. So now we know how Formula One looks like today and how it's become more widespread than ever before. Now we can move on to talk about the several instances in which we find Formula One technology in industries other than motor racing. According to the article, How F1 Technology Has Supercharged the World, writer Samarth Kanal explains how Formula One technology has been found in hospitals in order to help them take better care of their patients. Data systems from Formula One has helped hospitals track their patients in their ICU, and it has also helped determine trends in their patients. There have also been sensors implemented on surgeons in order to help provide feedback for them so that they can better critique their technique. Also, according to the article, 5 Surprising Ways Formula One is Changing the World, writer Victoria Masterson explains how some Formula One teams have begun to help grocery stores decrease their impact on the environment. In certain cases, Formula One teams have donated some of their technology that help supermarkets decrease their energy consumption in the use of their fridges. F1 technology has been implemented in some of these fridges of supermarkets to help decrease their energy consumption. And in some cases, the energy consumption has decreased by a total of 15%. And also, the amount of carbon that has been used has been decreased by a total of 9,000 tons each year. So now that we know some ways in which Formula One technology has started to affect our normal lives, we can now head to the conclusion of this speech. I would like to reiterate that Formula One is a global motorsport that has origins and roots dating back to the early 1900s in Europe. I would also like to remind you that nowadays Formula One has grown to encompass more of the world and has become more widespread than it has ever been. Also, it is now becoming apparent of just how much Formula One technology has been shared in terms of where it can be found in other industries other than motor racing. So now, after hearing this speech, hopefully you have an idea of what Formula One is, and you will be able to think about it whenever you hear it come up in either conversation or on TV. Thank you.